Voxday, voxday.blogspot.com, and SJ Hunter Extraordinaire. Thanks for tuning in tonight. I'm very, very amused to be addressing a subject that is near and dear to my heart, and that is how you go about destroying an SJW-infested institution. Now, this is important because more and more of the institutions and organizations and churches and pretty much every group in every human field, every field of human endeavor, from sports teams to religion to everything else, is totally infested by SJWs. Now, some of these organizations are completely converged, others are not, but regardless, the same process is at work, the same problems are being presented, and the same solutions apply to all of them. And so that's why it's important to discuss these things and talk about these things. So what's happening right now is the result of things that we put into motion back in 2015. I'm talking about the premier science fiction convention. It's called Worldcon. Got some chocolate there on my lips. Sorry about that. And if you don't know about this, you can go to my the Wikipedia page about me. You can go to the Wikipedia page about sad puppies. And the reason I suggest Wikipedia rather than Infogalactic is because Wikipedia is absolutely on the other side. So you can be 100% certain that you are not getting the story from our side of the picture. So, what we did was we invaded SJW-controlled territory. We provoked a reaction through our actions, and then we stepped back. We just stepped back once they were committed to acting in order to stop us. Now, a lot of you will recall Isaac Newton's third law. For every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. And this is a basic principle that works really, really well with SJWs. All right. So what we did was we came in strong and hard, played by the rules that they had set up, took advantage of the rules according to the rules, and completely dominated their award ceremonies. The first year was a bit of a surprise. When we came in, we hit them hard. We could have done more, but I frankly got tired of filling in lists. And so you'll have to look it up, but we took something like, 57 of the 81 available nominations. So what we forced them to do was to choose between awarding people they hated, or blowing up the award, giving no award out. And of course, they did exactly what we expected, which was to blow it up. And so the next year, see, we knew we had 2 years to act because they have a 2-year process for changing the rules. And keep in mind, the whole objective was to get them to change the rules. The objective was not to go and try to win awards. None of us gave a damn about their awards. The whole objective was to get them to show their hand. And so they made a big deal about how this couldn't be permitted to happen again. They made a big deal about how it was just a bitter, jealous, hateful, bigoted people, and a small number of them who were attempting to, deprive women and people of color, and all this kind of bullshit. And you can look up the stories; they're all over the place. I mean, they literally they were so upset, they ran multiple stories in The Guardian. They were running stories everywhere from the New Republic to NPR to the New Zealand Herald. Okay, I mean, this was a stupid little worldwide story. And then they vowed that they were going to, summon the numbers and show that we were just a small minority. And we kicked their asses so hard that second year that I think we took like 71 out of the 81 nominations. We took even more than we had the year before. And this, of course, was the end of the world as far as they were concerned. Gamergate had taken over the Hugo Awards, and the whole thing was generally known as Sad Puppies. Sad Puppies was started by a conservative writer named Larry Correia. He's the famous author of the Monster Hunter International series, and he started it. We came on board a year later. There were some differences of opinion, and so they kept doing their Sad Puppies thing. We did what we call Rabid Puppies. Rabid Puppies was, as the name indicates, a little less conciliatory. They were there to try to fix science fiction. We were there to collect SJW skulls. So this was the difference. And of course, we even did things like nominate works that were totally ridiculous. This is why, if you look at the list of Hugo nominated works, you will find various works like Space Raptor Butt Invasion. There was another one, I can't even remember what it was. It was something on the order of, Taken by the T-Rex or some sort of ridiculous pseudo-science fiction, gay erotica, whatever. And so, the whole point was to demonstrate how ridiculous these awards are, because they had become ridiculous. It was basically SJWs, most of whom were publishing through Tor, braiding each other's hair and giving each other awards, and then claiming that they were the best that was out there. And so there was a lot of stuff that went on. I think possibly one of our biggest successes was convincing the executives at Macmillan to muzzle all of the Tor editors and management, basically ban them from social media. And if you see the vice president of science fiction's wife, the toad of Tor, as we call her, if you see what she was up to on Twitter, you can see why Macmillan muzzled everybody there, because they were doing the usual SJW thing, just making total asses of themselves, calling everybody Nazis and white supremacists and so forth, which was pretty ridiculous, especially when they were attacking their own authors. They were attacking Tor published authors. Just totally insane. Anyhow, they changed the rules, as we anticipated, and turned it into this esoteric complicated system that nobody can possibly pay attention to. And what's funny is that they were energized by the opposition to us. Of course, it's always going to happen. So what we did then is, as soon as we had the full engagement of their most rabid, out of control SJWs, we pulled back completely. We stopped nominating, we stopped signing up, we stopped everything. To the extent we paid any attention, we got involved with the Dragon Awards, which is a more genuinely populist sort of award, much more balanced, and actually rewards authors like Larry Correa, like Jim Butcher, people that people actually read, whose books they actually buy. And so, guess what was the result of us pulling back? Because we had whipped up their most extreme elements. Now, the extreme elements are totally in charge. Now, they are the most extreme SJWs are devouring the more reasonable voices. So the entire thing has basically turned into an orgy of autophagy, and is completely driving out the very people who used to control the whole thing, who were our original target from the very beginning. If you want to find out more about this stuff, just look on Twitter at all the stuff going on around Worldcon 2018. It's hilarious. I mean, they are attacking the program directors because they're misgendering people who call themselves they or ear. I mean, it basically what we succeeded in doing is turning Worldcon into WisCon. Now, here's an interesting observation. Isn't that what's happening to the DNC? Absolutely it is. And who caused that? Donald Trump is doing the same thing on a larger scale in the political world to what Rabid Puppies did to the science fiction world. It's the same thing. If you apply sufficient force, if you apply a sufficiently strong action and provoke a strong enough reaction, then you can withdraw and allow the SJWs that have been stirred up to devour everything else that's still there. You don't want to leave your hand. I mean, think about it this way. Imagine that SJWs are like piranhas. And so you've got these piranhas in the fish tank. And there's the SJWs, and then there's the regular lefty fish. They're all the enemy, but some of them are a little bit worse than others. So what you do, is you stick your hand in there and you shake your hand around, right? The key is you got to pull your hand out. Yeah. So you stick your hand in, you stir them all up, you pull your hand out, and then the piranha are going to attack everything that's in there. They don't realize that the other fish in there aren't your hand. They're not discerning. They have their agenda, and these other people stand in the way of that agenda just like you do. And so, by going in and stirring things up and then withdrawing, then the whole thing ends up turning into a massive mutually destructive activity. If nothing else keeps them occupied. Question: could the victory of the extreme forces not possibly strengthen the whole movement? Well, that would be the case if the extreme forces weren't completely insane. there is nothing that is strengthening the DNC by allowing lunatics like that young woman socialist becoming the face of the Democratic Party. That is not going to strengthen them. By elevating these people who, instead of writing about lasers and space opera and shooting at aliens, and instead they are trying to turn science fiction into something where it's all about the struggles of a misgendered African girl who is crying about the fact that she finds it difficult to get pregnant because she's really a guy. That does not strengthen science fiction. Nobody is buying those books. And so Thomas Howard says Trump doesn't withdraw. Oh, but he definitely does. Trump is the master of going and dropping a bomb over there and then just letting it take effect without, I'm not talking about when he's going toe to toe with somebody or whatever, but you need to know when to not get in the way of your enemy fighting itself. And so, and in case you doubt this stuff, it's in here. I wrote about this at the time that we were doing it, and I believe I'd have to. It's been a while since I've looked at this, but I believe I even told people that this was going to happen. I told people back in 2015 that they were going to turn on each other because of what we did. They were going to change their rules, and the extreme pink science fiction crew was going to become dominant over the professional crew. See, in science fiction, they made a mistake. The Science Fiction Writers Association made a mistake when they got rid of the need to keep requalifying. And they made a second mistake when they allowed fantasy writers to join as well. And so what happened is the people who are not real professionals, the people who managed to somehow game the requirements by writing 2 short stories and getting them published in some petty science fiction magazine that nobody reads, they have just as much influence in the organization as the professional writers. So now it's hilarious. What the people are complaining about, the people who are going there, attendance is down 40%, something like that. It's significantly down. And the best part is, all the people that they're featuring are these no-name, unprofessional authors that nobody's heard of, nobody buys, nobody cares about. And we knew that was going to happen because those are the people that we stirred up. And so what you're going to see is they're going to try to, the traditional lefties are going to try to take control, but they're not prepared for the viciousness and the obsessiveness of the SJWs. And so over the next few years, you're going to see that institution continue to spiral down until it finally crashes and burns for good. So anyhow, I just figured that in addition to enjoying this sort of thing personally, I thought that it's probably a good idea to not just take a victory lap, but also explain how the process works. Because this is definitely something that you can use as I don't know if it's more than a tactic, it's definitely something you can use as a strategy when you're dealing with an organization that is sufficiently converged. All you need to do to neutralize it is to make sure that, provoke it into giving the most extreme elements their head. Let's see, a couple questions here. There were some folks were kind enough to support the channel. Bumper Dram, thank you for the the donation. Thank you for your work. It is important. Clara just kicked into the general video fund. Thanks for all of these. Thank you. A shekel from Ipo. Interesting. And then a question from Bumper, who says, are leftists trying to provoke physical attacks on Trump? Yes. I believe there have been several assassination attempts. They don't seem to have been particularly serious, but they were definitely, there have been attacks on his motorcade and so forth. They desperately want physical attacks, not just on Trump, but on Trump supporters as well. The media is trying to hide some of these things, but it's definitely happening. Bumper also said, thank you for the streams. These give hope to us. Good. You know, hope is important. Hope is vital. You know, we do not despair. When we get knocked down, we get back up. And, you know, we're not given a spirit of fear, but we're given spirits of faith, hope, and love. Let me see, that says, would these physical attacks create white civil unrest? Well, I mean, the more that there are, the more unrest there will be. And so, in short, yes, but I think that we're a long way to go before it gets too serious. You know, the God Emperor is in control, and you know, they can only push the unrest so far, especially with the big crackdown that they did at the inauguration and all. That sent a pretty strong message that the administration was not going to screw around. I just got there. Is there a new crowdfunding avenue? No, not yet. We're still working on that to actually support Vox Diversity proper. But if you want to support the Darkstream channel, there's a way to do it through Streamlabs. Just look underneath, and there's a click. You know, we don't have, unfortunately, because we don't have this monetized through YouTube at all. But what you can do, so we can't do the super chats per se. But what you can do is if you give a donation to the Streamlabs, then they give you a space underneath it that you can type in a question or something. If you do that, I'll see it, and I will do my best to answer it. I mean, honestly, I answer quite a few of the questions that just pop up here, but one way to make sure that I see it, because sometimes these get rolling pretty quickly, one way to make sure I see it is if you do that sort of super chats workaround, as it were. Toronto is less than 50% white. How much time do we have? I don't know enough about Toronto to have an opinion, honestly. I mean, Toronto sounds like a complete mess, but I don't know how long and how well Canada is going to hang together. You know, it's a big place. There's not too many people. That tends to reduce the stress and the pressure. The U.S., on the other hand, is at a measure of social tension that's been unseen since the Civil War, and so you know, that's definitely a dangerous situation there. He observed in SJWs always lie that once SJWs have conversion institution, they will burn down the whole thing rather than surrender it. That's absolutely true. Do you think this applies to any branch of the U.S. government? I don't think so, because I don't think they have the ability to burn it down. Does America need a viable third party? Yes, but structurally that's pretty much impossible. You said that Judaism gives a get out of jail free card. What is that card? What text grants him that free for all? What I'm referring to is there are verses relating to, I believe it's boys under the age of 9 and girls under the age of 3. If a man sexually abuses them, because they are not considered to be old enough to be actually damaged by the act, no guilt is cast upon the individual. So, basically, if you're the sort of person who is looking for a justification for acts of that sort, there you have it. Does this have something to do with the occurrence of that sort of abuse in those sort of circles? It's hard to say, but you can certainly understand how that could happen. And this is not something that is just news in the West. In Israel, the Orthodox communities there tend to have a particular problem with the molestation of children, and I don't know whether they actively, openly justify it or not using that, but there is at least a textual justification that people can turn to if they wished. Obviously, one hopes that they don't, but it's there. SJWs inadvertently destroy the organizations they are part of. It's something they can't see will happen and can't help but do. Until it's destroyed, they will attempt to use it for their purpose. That is correct. Congratulations. John just realized he is an identitarian. We're all identitarians. It's just a question of whether we realize and admit it or not. The thing that is so ludicrously unreasonable about people who are claimed to be against identity politics is that if you ask why they're against identity politics, they almost always rely upon identity-related reasons. I can't accept identity politics because my friend is black. Well, you just define the person through their identity, and so this is one of the ironies, is that the more identity complicated you are, the more you tend to consciously reject the reality of identity politics, the more deluded you are about the situation. What part of Aquinas' Summa Theologica do you consider a must-read? I'm going to have to get back to you on that. I have read most of it. I even used it as the basis for a novel called Summa Helvetica that I wrote. I personally find the more abstract aspects more interesting and relevant than the stuff that is related to, animals or that sort of thing. But let me get back to you on that one. I think that's a subject for a whole Darkstream in itself, if not more than one. I have a feeling Shapiro wouldn't support Israel's nation-state law in America. Of course not. He is pro-Israeli. He's anti-American. Is Dearborn, Michigan going to become a no-go zone? Probably. Dearborn, Michigan is the American equivalent of Saint-Denis in Paris. Who's hotter, Islandwy or Sinedra? I'm going to have to go with Islandwy. Do you think Assad will defeat the rebel and ISIS by year's end? Yes. Also just got Avalon, really good comic. Can't argue with you there. In fact, we just Avalon 2 is all done illustrated. We just hired a colorist for that one, so I think we're going to get that one out pretty soon. I'm against identity politics. Tells you to be a Christian. Now what's that then, bucko? Exactly. Let's see. I wished I realized I was an identitarian 10 years ago. Identity complications suck. They do. I mean, look at me. I'm very identity complicated. But, because I am dedicated to the truth, and I don't believe that the truth depends upon me, I don't take my identity complications or my identity interests into account. That's something that people don't realize. I'm going to respond to that open letter to me that was published on Countercurrents the other day. And in the comments, one of the things that I noticed was, people were trying to, they were making assumptions about my position based on my background. And what they don't understand is that I don't do that. I would have exactly the same opinion even if I wasn't American Indian and white. And also, just to correct everyone, no, it's not just a one drop or a 1/32 Elizabeth Warren Pocahontas thing. It's legitimate. If you notice, I'm pretty public. No one has ever come forward. No friends, no family, nobody who knows the family. Nobody has ever come forward to contradict a single thing I've said, because what I tell you is true. Let's see. Did you move to Italy to avoid the soon-to-be severe violence in America? Honestly, in part, but you need to keep in mind that this was, more than 20 years ago. I always felt, not always, I felt that the United States was eventually going to break apart, and I just didn't think that it was probably the place that I wanted to raise my children. And like I say, I prefer my societies pre-collapsed. Italy knows how to handle societal collapse and government collapse. The United States does not. I wonder how the German government will explain that they are not deporting the hundreds of thousands of Syrians after the war has ended. Well, I think that the German government is going to be replaced by a German government that will deport hundreds of thousands of Syrians. Let's see. Ask some. Okay, I don't know who. Let's see. Doot. Is Janelle Dynamique's artwork based on a human model? No. How many kids do you have? I never answer questions about my family. Is all immigration bad for a country? Beyond a very small amount, yes. Mexican, Native American, American. Planning on publishing a family recipe book. I have to say, my mother is an amazing Mexican cook. I mean, she was legitimately famous for that throughout her social circle, or throughout our social circle when I was growing up. And we were the only family that made Mexican and made real proper proper Mexican with the whole the whole enchilada, as it were. So, but I don't cook myself, so I won't be publishing any cookbooks anytime soon. What made you choose Bucknell? It was it was a compromise. My parents wanted me to go to MIT or Princeton. I was an idiot, and I didn't even think about going out to Stanford or California. I was very focused on the East Coast. My family was from the East Coast. My dad was at MIT, and so Bucknell was both a party school and had pretty good academics. And so it was kind of funny because we went to Princeton, and it was just this tedious place. It was all very gray. the guy who was showing us around was very snobby, and there was not a single attractive woman the entire campus visit. And then we go to Bucknell, and it's this beautiful campus. It's sunny. This gorgeous Kappa Kappa Gamma shows us around, invites me to a party that night. My dad's like, well, I guess we know where you're going to school. So, provide your DNA results, American Indian, LOL. See, this is what's so ridiculous about people. I have the DNA results. We know, that there's literally nothing to debate. You can believe it. You don't have to believe it. What a lot of millennials don't seem to grasp is that something is true whether or not you have seen the proof. Okay? It's not like everything exists in this uncertain state of Schrodinger's cat until you personally are provided with the proof of something. To go back to the castrate Abelard, a thing is so or it is not so. Period. Either I am an American Indian, complete with the DNA, etc., the family stories, the heritage, or I'm lying. Think what you will. Let's see. So he says, your brown bros are proof. Well, yeah, that's the other reason. And that's what's funny about the whole thing is, everyone who knows my family knows the truth because I look like my dad. My brothers look like my mother. Nobody questions them at all. Show your DNA results, you liar. No. Here's the thing. I don't care what you think. You can think whatever you like, but the facts are the facts. Anyhow, I think I'm going to block this guy because he's clearly a monomaniac. We're going to remove. Oh, that's just there we go. Okay. Anyhow, so to go on, let's see what else. Actually, oh wow, we've gone on for a long time. I had no idea. Well, hey, that's funny. Clearly, I'm an Aztec because I collect skulls. Anyhow, that's about it for tonight. But thanks for tuning in. And let me encourage you, if you want to learn more about this stuff, I've written 2 books on the subject. SJWs always lie, and SJWs always double down. And I would strongly encourage you to, at the very least, read SJWs always lie. It will save you if you come under attack from SJWs. It will help you considerably. If you want to better understand why SJWs do what they do and be able to anticipate what they're going to do next, that's where SJWs always double down comes in handy. And it also gets into a little bit the psychology of the gamma. And I think that in both cases you'll find them very useful in navigating today's increasingly complicated social structures. So have a good evening, and we'll see you next time.